The first time it happened, I thought it was just a malfunction. It was past midnight in the kind of high-rise building that never truly sleeps, old concrete, flickering hallway lights, the low constant hum of pipes and distant traffic. The kind of place where people come and go without ever really knowing each other. I had worked late, my mind foggy with exhaustion, and all I wanted was to reach my apartment on the 17th floor and collapse into bed. The elevator doors slid shut with a tired metallic sigh. The numbers above the door glowed a dull orange. 1, 2, 3. The car rose smoothly, cables humming like a distant, steady breath. Then, between the 7th and 8th floor, it stopped. Not the normal gentle pause of someone pressing a button. This was abrupt. Violent. The lights flickered once, twice, and then settled into a dim emergency glow. The elevator shuddered, as if something had grabbed it from the outside and held it still. My stomach tightened. Great, I muttered. Just great. I pressed the 17 again. Nothing. The door open button. Nothing. The emergency intercom crackled with static but no voice answered. The digital display above the door didn't show 7 or 8. It showed 7.5. At first I laughed. A nervous, disbelieving sound. Elevators don't have half floors. Buildings don't have half floors. It had to be a glitch. Then I noticed something else. The air inside the car felt thicker, heavier, like humidity before a storm, but cold. The kind of cold that crawls under your skin instead of resting on it. The faint hum of the machinery below my feet slowed, stretching out into a low, almost organic rhythm. Like a heartbeat. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of how loud my own breathing sounded in the small space. The walls seemed closer than they had a moment ago. The mirrors reflected me over and over, but the reflections felt slightly delayed, like they were thinking before copying my movements. That was when I heard the whisper. Not through the intercom. Not through the walls. From the elevator itself. A low, lead murmur, as if many voices were speaking at once, overlapping, unfinished. Words I couldn't quite understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Tired. Hungry. Waiting. I pressed my ear against the cold metal wall. The whisper grew clearer, resolving into something that made my blood run cold. Stay. The lights flickered again. The number 7.5 pulsed faintly, as if breathing with the sound beneath my feet. I stepped back, heart pounding. No, I whispered. No, no, no. That was when the doors began to open. Not fully. Just a few inches. Enough to show that there was no hallway outside. Only darkness. Not the absence of light, but a depth of it, like looking into a vast, hollow space where the building should have been. And in that darkness, faint shapes shifted. Tall, thin silhouettes, pressed close together, as if standing in a crowd. As if waiting for a train. As if waiting for me. The smell hit me next, old dust, rust, and something sweet and rotten, like flowers left too long in a closed room. A voice rose from the dark, clearer than the others. You're early, it said. The doors slid shut again with a soft, final click. The elevator began to move. But it didn't go up. And it didn't go down. It sank. Not physically, my feet stayed level, but the sense of motion twisted, as if the space around the car were folding inward. The numbers above the door blurred, then vanished altogether. The walls groaned, stretching slightly, like old bones under pressure. The whispering grew louder. Closer. And suddenly, I was no longer alone. A man stood in the corner where no one had been before. He wore a wrinkled suit, eyes sunken, skin pale as paper. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Maybe months. Which floor? He asked softly. I couldn't speak. He smiled, and in that smile was a terrible, exhausted relief. Doesn't matter, he said. It never does, once it stops here. The elevator shuddered again. And somewhere deep within the building, something vast and patient shifted, as if it had just been fed. The next thing I knew, the air in the elevator thickened, pressing against my lungs like a wet blanket. My pulse was pounding in my ears, drowning out the murmurs that now sounded like a chorus of quiet lamentations. Shadows stretched and twisted in the corners of the car, shapes that moved independently of the light, waiting for me to notice them, or maybe for me to panic. I tried the emergency button again. Nothing but static. The man in the corner leaned casually against the wall, watching me. Not judging. Not threatening. Just waiting. Calm. Too calm. You're wondering why it stops, he said, his voice low and gravelly. You think it's a malfunction. A glitch. But it's not mechanical. It's alive. I laughed nervously. Alive? Yes, he said. The building. The elevator. This whole place. It feeds. Not on your money, not on your work, not on your patience, but on the moments you regret. The things you can't forgive yourself for. The doors that never closed when they should have. The words you didn't say. That's what it wants. I stared at him. The fluorescent glow above flickered, revealing that his form was somehow distorted, the edges of his shadow bending unnaturally. I felt it too, the pull, the sensation that the elevator car was no longer merely an object, but a living chamber that had recognized me. I don't understand, I whispered. He stepped closer. Soon, you will. Then the lights went out completely. For a moment, I couldn't even see my own hands. The hum of the elevator deepened, vibrating through the soles of my feet, reverberating in my chest. The whispers returned, louder, sharper, forming fragmented phrases I could almost understand. Names. Apologies. Confessions. Screams that had no source but the building itself. And then, without warning, the elevator jolted violently. Not up, not down, but sideways, or maybe backwards. I couldn't tell. The walls rippled like water, and the numbers above the doors returned for a brief instant. -1. Then vanished. A door opened. Not at a floor. Not at any place I recognized. Just a yawning black void beyond the metal frame. Figures stepped out, or more accurately, poured out, from the shadows. They weren't ghosts in the traditional sense. They were pieces of memory, unfinished lives, the remnants of regrets that had been trapped here, absorbed by the building over decades. One of them approached me. A woman in a nurse's uniform, face pale and hollow, eyes wide and accusing. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "You never should have left them." I tried to back away, but the elevator didn't give me space. It didn't move in the way elevators are supposed to. Instead, it became a cage, the walls compressing slightly, keeping me centered, forcing me to face the figures. Then the man in the corner spoke again. "It doesn't let anyone go once it decides you have a debt. Not until you've fed it what it wants." "What does it want?" I asked. My voice trembled. "You." I froze. "I don't." "You've brought yourself here, didn't you? By leaving, by forgetting, by ignoring the small, terrible calls of guilt, you've made yourself ready. And now, it's hungry." The whispers became coherent for a fraction of a second. Names I recognized. Moments I couldn't bear to remember. The night I ignored the fire alarm in the building a decade ago. The man who fell in the stairwell because I left the lights off. The friend I never called back. Every misstep, every slight, every broken promise, they were all here. And the building wanted them. All of them. I screamed, pounding on the walls. The elevator groaned in response, as though amused. The figures advanced, moving closer, but never touching. Instead, they emanated a pull, a force that tried to drag me toward the open door, toward the darkness beyond. I realized, with horrifying clarity, that if I stepped through, I would vanish. My regrets would become part of the building, just as theirs had. And if I refused, it would never let me leave, never allow me to sleep, never allow me to live the rest of my life in peace. The man leaned close to my ear. "Some come here willingly. Some are dragged. But none leave unchanged." At that moment, the lights flickered back on. The elevator numbers returned, 17. The open door vanished. For an instant, everything looked normal. My heart thumped in my chest as if it had been holding its breath. And then I realized the most terrifying truth. I was smiling. Not with relief, but because I understood. The building didn't just feed on people. It harvested their regrets. It thrived on them. And now, it had me the second time it happened. I was prepared. I didn't press the buttons. I didn't trust the numbers above the door. Instead, I stepped in slowly, eyes scanning the walls, listening for the hum that had become almost alive in my memory. The elevator responded instantly, sliding shut with that same metallic sigh, as if welcoming a familiar guest. The car rose smoothly at first. But the moment we passed the 6th floor, it stuttered. Not mechanically, but deliberately, like it was aware I was expecting it. The lights dimmed again, and the temperature dropped. The smell of rust and wet concrete seeped into my senses, making my stomach turn. I tried to call for help. My phone slipped from my grasp, hitting the floor with a hollow thunk, screen cracking but miraculously still alive. The display flashed with no signal, no numbers, no indication of time. Then the half floor appeared again. 6.5. The door opened, revealing nothing but darkness thicker than the absence of light. And the whispers returned. Only now, they were louder. Closer. Many voices, overlapping, chanting fragments of apologies, confessions, and broken promises. From the darkness, figures stepped out. Not a single person, but dozens. Each one a frozen memory. A man in a security guard uniform, a mother clutching her child, a man in a hospital gown, a young woman who had fallen down the stairwell years ago. They moved slowly, yet each step seemed purposeful, synchronized with the slow heartbeat of the elevator itself. "You see," said the man in the corner again, his voice calm, almost fond. "It's not random. It's feeding. It's patient. And it knows exactly what it wants." I felt my chest tighten. The figures weren't trying to harm me. They weren't angry or malevolent. They were waiting, watching, hungry. For what? I didn't yet know. Then it hit me. The building wasn't satisfied with simple fear. It wanted something more. It wanted me, or rather, the part of me that had left regrets unspoken, debts unpaid, promises broken. It wanted my memories, my guilt, my unspoken confessions. I tried to step back, but the elevator seemed to stretch, elongating the walls, pulling me toward the darkness beyond the open doors. My hand scraped against the metal, leaving faint streaks as the whispers pressed against my mind, forming phrases I couldn't resist. "You forgot her birthday. You didn't call back. You left the door unlocked." The man in the corner smiled, showing teeth far too sharp and white, unnaturally clean against the pallor of his skin. "Some buildings learn," he said. "Some elevators remember. Some are hungry." I realized the figures weren't just memories. They were part of the building. Every person who had ever suffered here, ever regretted, ever died with unfinished business, they had been absorbed. And now, they were feeding its consciousness. Its hunger. Its patience. The car lurched violently. My stomach rose. The walls flexed like they were breathing. The numbers above the door began counting downward, not floors, but years. 2003. 1998. 1986. 1972. I could feel it. The elevator wasn't moving through space. It was moving through time. Every moment the building had absorbed, every soul it had claimed, every regret it had harvested, it was all compressed here, ready to pull me in. "Do you understand now?" the man asked. His voice was everywhere and nowhere. "This is the way it grows. Every step, every choice, every fear." The whispers coalesced into a single phrase, loud enough to make the metal walls reverberate. "Stay, feed, join, finish." My knees buckled. I fell to the floor, clutching the railing. The elevator shook again, violently, violently enough to make me scream. And then, from the darkness beyond the half-floor, a hand reached out, not quite solid, not quite human. And I saw it clearly. The building itself had a form, a presence, a mind. It was enormous, impossible to define, stretching behind walls, floors, ceilings. It pulsed with life, with memory, with hunger. Every person it had absorbed shimmered like liquid shadows along its contours, and the hand beckoned me. The elevator groaned, the lights flickering in a painful rhythm, revealing glimpses of the other figures. Doctors, children, neighbors, each pulled slightly toward the darkness, half submerged in it, half in the car. "Give it to us," the man whispered. "Give it your regrets. Let it taste. Let it feed. You can't stop it. You can only join." Panic surged through me. I clawed at the walls, the floor, the ceiling. But no matter how much I fought, the pull increased. The figures drew closer, their faces pressing against the metal walls like misty imprints. The whispers became screams, voices of every life absorbed, all demanding, all hungry. Then, for a brief instant, I saw her. My mother. Not alive. Not a memory. But part of it. Her eyes, hollow yet accusing, bore into me. "You left me," the voice whispered, and the pull intensified. I knew, in that moment, that the elevator had no intention of letting me leave. Not until I fed it what it wanted. My fear, my guilt, my regrets, it would consume them all. And in consuming, it would grow stronger. More patient. More cunning. I realized I was standing on the edge of eternity. The elevator stopped again. The doors slid open to darkness deeper than night. The figures reached toward me, slowly, inevitably. I had a choice, give myself to it, or fight against it, knowing that the building had centuries of patience and souls to lend it power. I stepped forward. And then the car jolted violently, hurling me back. The doors slammed shut, the lights flickered, and the hum became a roar. The number above the door changed. Not a floor. Not a year. Something else. Something alive. Dash infinity. I realized then, the building didn't just feed on souls. It fed on awareness. On consciousness itself. Every regret, every memory, every flicker of fear made it grow, made it immortal, made it eternal. And I was its newest course. The elevator shook violently, throwing me against the railing. The shadows in the corners were no longer just silhouettes. They writhed, coiling like smoke, forming faces I recognized. Neighbors, co-workers, strangers, all trapped, all feeding the building. Their eyes begged for release, but the building only consumed, never freed. The man in the corner, if he could still be called that, smiled again. Do you see it now? This is how it survives. How it grows. Each regret, each fear, each choice not taken, its nourishment. And now, you're here. My mind raced, clawing for escape, for logic, for something human. But reason dissolved under the weight of centuries of absorbed lives. I understood the truth too late. The elevator didn't malfunction. The building wasn't haunted. It was alive, conscious, patient. And I was prey. The doors slid open one final time, revealing an endless black void. From it poured tendrils of shadow, reaching for me. Not solid, not quite corporeal, but alive, hungry, undulating, pulsing with whispers and screams. Every sound was a memory, every shadow a regret, every flicker a life it had claimed. I fell to my knees. No, I gasped. I won't. I can't. But the pull was irresistible. The shadows twisted around my body, cold and wet, pressing against my skin. I screamed as visions of every mistake, every unspoken word, every regret I had ever carried, flashed before me. My life became a tapestry of failures and guilt, and the elevator fed on each one, amplifying the hunger. The man stepped closer. There is no escape. Only feeding, only joining. The building wants you whole. Every memory, every thought, every regret. It's patient. It's eternal. And it will have you. The whispers became deafening. Faces of the lost pressed against me, voices of the consumed filling my ears. The floor beneath me felt liquid, shifting. The walls breathed, pulsing like the chest of a sleeping giant. And then I understood. I didn't just enter an elevator, I entered the building itself. It wasn't a machine. It was a predator. Every floor, every shaft, every elevator car, every hall was a limb of its consciousness, an organ in its body. It existed to feed, and I had wandered straight into its heart. I tried to fight, to pull myself away, but the shadows wrapped tighter, and the whispers became a single voice. You are ours now. Feed. Become part. Eternal. I screamed, and then the world snapped. I awoke. Or thought I had. The elevator doors opened to the 17th floor, lights flickering, normal as ever. My breath was ragged, heart hammering. The man was gone. The shadows were gone. The whispers had vanished. I staggered into the hallway, convinced I had imagined it. Maybe it was stress. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was a vivid nightmare. But the building waited. Patient. Eternal. Watching. Hungry. Weeks later, I learned the truth. Others had entered that elevator at odd hours, alone. None had emerged unchanged. Some disappeared entirely. Some returned, hollow-eyed and silent, unable to speak of what they'd experienced. And the building, it remained. Towering above the city, concrete and glass, unremarkable, unsuspicious. I never took that elevator alone again. Never. But I could still hear it sometimes, deep in the shafts, in the hum of the cables, in the faint whisper of air when the doors closed. Always patient. Always hungry. Waiting for the next regret, the next memory, the next soul foolish enough to ride. And I knew, with terrifying certainty, that it would never stop. The elevator that stops between floors doesn't malfunction. It chooses. And the building, it always gets what it wants. I live in fear now, in every building with an elevator. Because I know the truth. They are all watching, waiting. And somewhere, deep below, that one in my building still hungers. Patient. Eternal. And one day, it will call for me again.